Hello friends, this is my next video on the topic website versus web applications. Thanks for appreciating my work, and this is my next video. Let us know the difference between websites and web applications. What is a website? Website is a collection of web pages. A web page is developed using HTML, and a web page may contain text, images, audio, video, etc. All these things are mixed together by using HTML to prepare web pages, and the collection of web pages makes a website. Usually, websites are developed for the companies for advertising their products or services, or by the government for giving the information to the citizens, or by the authors for writing their publications, or by the news agencies for publishing the news. So websites are used for various purposes. Now let us go ahead and see what are the types of websites or web pages. There are two types of web pages, that are static web pages and dynamic web pages. Static web pages are ready-made web pages. Like this is one example. Whenever you visit this website, you will find this page. Always the page remains same. The page never changes. It is written one time, and every time the user visits this website, he can find the same contents. Contents will not change. Means look and feel, the design and the contents, everything remains same. Now here's another example of a static web page. Like this is regarding customer service.html. Here you can see the extension shows that it's a HTML page. Next, how the websites static web pages works on the websites. Like here is a web server and it's having collection of pages along with the other media contents like images, audio, videos, etc. And the user, when he enters a domain name of this website via internet, he will be accessing these pages. So the pages gets loaded directly into his machine and rendered inside his browser. So these pages are readily available on the web server, that are ready-made pages. Here's an example of the website we have seen just now. Assume that this website is having some set of pages, and all those web pages are inside the web server, and this is the home page. And when you click on any hyperlink here, the next page will be loaded, and so on. So you can access all these pages from this web server or from this website. Now let us talk about dynamic web pages. When the people started web pages for providing dynamic contents to the user. Like here is an example. This is giving the mark sheet for a particular exam. Here a hall ticket number or roll number is entered here, and these are the marks for that particular candidate. If you change the roll number, the marks will change. So it means it's not a ready-made page, it's a dynamic page. I should say it's partially ready-made and partially dynamic. The look and feel, all the arrangement of the contents, the formatting of a page is static, which is ready-made, and the contents like the marks and the subjects and the name of a candidate and his address, all these things are dynamic. Usually these contents are pulled from the database. If you give a different roll number here or the hall ticket number here, the contents will change, and the contents will be pulled from the database depending on the roll number given here. So we can say that this dynamic pages takes the parameters and change their contents. So this is how dynamic web pages are. Now let us look at the difference between static page and dynamic page. Static pages are just like ready-made pages. Whenever you go for, like if you take a ready-made dress, when you go for a size 42 or 40, some shirt size, then always the fitting of that shirt will be same from the same brand. Whereas a tailor-made shirt, if you go for a tailor-made shirt, then the tailor will take the measurement, and depending on the measurement he will stitch the dress. So the contents will change. So fitting will change. So similarly, in the static pages, the contents will remain always same, and the dynamic pages, the contents may change depending on the parameters given or the roll number given, as per this example. So both the pages are developed using HTML only. Then what is the difference? Tailor-made pages are programmed pages. Here a tailor is nothing but a program. So let us see further here. As example of a dynamic website or dynamic web pages, here is the web server, and the website may have some static pages as well as some dynamic pages. Usually dynamic pages access database, as I told you, and here the pages are developed using HTML, which contains text, images, audios, videos as usual. But the dynamic pages are developed using the technologies like servlets, JSPs, ASP.NET and PHP. Let's see further. Here is an example. There are some static and some dynamic pages, and here's a database, and the pages are being shown inside the browser. This is a dynamic page. Let us see the technologies. For developing just static pages or pages, HTML, it is used for formatting the contents and developing the user interface, that is look and feel of a page. And CSS, it is useful for enhancing HTML or formatting HTML. So this gives some boost up to the HTML. And JavaScript, which is used for interactivity, like pop-ups and pull-down menus and so on. Any interactivity required on the page that is provided using JavaScript. And these three things are must for developing any web page. Now when we come to dynamic pages, here you can see an example. The technologies used are Servlet, JSP, ASP.NET and PHP. Now Servlet JSP, if you see, they are having HTML, CSS, JavaScript plus Java. So the trick here is that you have to mix all these things together to develop web page. And ASP.NET may be having VB.NET or C#.NET plus HTML, CSS or JavaScript. Similarly, PHP, some PHP language, and then HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So one should be good at Java, HTML, CSS as well as JavaScript, and he should also know how to use all of them together for developing web pages. So this is a little bit difficult for learning all these three things and using them perfectly for developing web pages. But need not worry, a lot of tools are available nowadays for developing dynamic pages easily without even knowing the details of all these technologies. Now let us talk about web application. For understanding web application, let us understand what an application is. See, application is a large program. You can treat it as a collection of functions. A program is nothing but a collection of functions. So here is an example of MS Word, and this is the user interface. This is the main window of a MS Word. And MS Word, whatever the activities we do inside MS Word, for every activity there may be some function which is called at the background. So here are some example of functions. When I want to open any file, a function called open, and when you are checking spelling, then the spell checker is called. When you are changing the font, then font loader is called. When you want to save any document, then the save function is called. So for every activity we do in MS Word, let us think that there is some function called at the background. All the work that we do in MS Word is limited inside this window only, inside this window. Now here's an example. Suppose I want to open any document, a dialog box will open inside this window, and which will be calling this particular function and showing the set of files. When I select any file, this function will open and display the contents of that file. Now let us talk about web application. If you have seen any Word application, let us say for example, MS Office have its cloud-based application called Office 365. That Office 365 has MS Word, Excel and PowerPoint, all this application available on the cloud. So here is an example of MS Word which is loaded inside the browser. This is a browser window, and you can see it is just like how it is installed on our machines. The same MS Word inside the browser. So this is not installed on our machine. This has came from web and running inside the browser. How this may be working? See, this is the only page. This is just a page, one page, that is HTML page. It is loaded inside the browser. So once you log on to this Office 365 website and go to MS Word, then this page will open inside the browser, and this page is loaded once and remains as it is. Now whatever the activities you do, for each activity a function will be called. Then where these functions are? The functions are not on our machine. Only the browser window is there on our machine, which is having this page, and the functions are there on the web server only. And those functions we call them as web services. So this is a web page which is calling these functions, calling the function. Like if I am checking for spelling, then the text may be sent to the spell checker. It will find out whatever the spelling mistakes and all, and returns the result, and that updated inside the browser window. When I want to save, if I say save, then all the document contents are sent onto the server and it's saved on the server. So here only user interface is inside our browser window on our machine, and all the functions required for this program are there inside web, that is inside the web server. So this is how the cloud computing comes in. We call this as a cloud based application, or we can also say web application. So how this page is made? It is made out of HTML again, and having text, images, so and so, and it is developed using HTML, CSS and JavaScript, this entire thing. And how these web services are developed? Web services are developed using Java or .NET or PHP or Ruby and Perl or Python. There are so many languages used for developing these functions, the server-side functions. And the communication between this browser window, this page, and these functions is via AJAX. The mechanism used here is AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So the data transfer or the communication in between these two is via AJAX, that is XML. The data is transferred in the form of XML. Now let us talk about web application. For understanding web application, let us understand what an application is. Now let us talk about dynamic web pages. When people started web pages for providing dynamic contents to the user. Like here is an example. This is giving the mark sheet for a particular exam. Here, if I want to compose any mail, then a dialog box will pop up here, and I can write all the contents and say send, and a message, your message is sent, as mail is sent, will appear here on the top. If I want to chat with any friend, just I have to click on his name and the window will pop, dialog box will pop up here, and I can start chatting. So you can observe that everything is happening inside this window only, within this page only. But all the activities are managed by the remote functions which are present on the web server. This is how. For checking a mail, a function may be available, or sending a mail and opening a mail, or chatting with friends. For every activity, there may be some function running on the web server. Then from here, whenever I do any activity, and the respective function will be called, and the communication between them is via AJAX. Now similarly, this is also done with the mobile application. You might have seen Google or Gmail app on your mobile phone. You might have installed. Now it's a very common thing on every mobile phone. We find this Gmail app. If you see a Gmail app, this is just a user interface developed on, for example, Android mobile phone. It is developed using just Android's language, just a user interface. And when you click on an email, it will call the check mail function and bring the mail contents, and it will show them here. And if you want to compose and write an email and then send it, then the send mail function will be called. So similarly, the user interface, this is not developed using HTML, but this is using Android's language. That is similar to Java. So it's an Android app, or on iPhone, it is developed using C, Objective-C. So it's a iPhone's application, and just a user interface can develop for any mobile phone, but every mobile phone application will call the same set of function on Google's website or Gmail's website. and Gmail server is having this set of function. So it means these functions can be called even from the browser, or these functions can be called even from the mobile phone. And this is how our mobile apps works. They get the data from the